morning. Welcome to the Point. This morning we'll take a look at a primary race that will impact the 34th Senate District. That's Newaygo, Oceana, and Muskegon counties. It's where Senator Jeff Hansen, a Republican, is currently serving. He can't run again because of term limits. There are 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats in the primary race. We start with first-time political candidate Poppy Saez Hernandez. Talk to me a little bit about the process of running for state senate. I know you've been active in the community, and I know that running for office is something that a lot of people think about, but taking the step to do it is a big commitment. What made you decide to run?
I was approached in November and asked to consider a run by the Senate caucus leadership. And I said, you know what, I'll give it some thought, I'll do some research, and I'll get back to you. And that's exactly what I did. I did a lot of research, and I learned, I developed a new understanding for why we have the government that we have, which is that, you know, the process is very labor intensive, it's very expensive, and it requires a high level of commitment. And I think that's why it's difficult for people like myself to make the decision to run. You know, you have to be able to pull a staff together that you really probably can't pay for several months. So people that are highly committed to you and can afford to work for free.
And have the abilities that you need.
And have the abilities that you need, exactly. You have to yourself not be able to earn because it's a full-time plus job. So people like me who have always worked and generated income to contribute to my family's household, you know, that's a difficult conversation with my husband saying, hey, can you carry the family for about a year, right? You have to become visible in ways that many of us who work in community, it hasn't been part of our job, right? Like I can work alongside people and be very effective in my role without ever sitting down in front of a camera with Rick Albin, right? So those are some of the challenges that you have to be willing to overcome. But I think that we've made them too big in our minds, because the reality is many of us that work in community have overcome greater challenges every day. And so if we just let ourselves consider the fact that we can transfer those skills into a process like this, we can accomplish even bigger things.
I get the sense, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but in our conversation before, I get the sense that you are really enjoying the engagement part, the knocking on doors, which is laborious and some candidates do not like a great deal, but you seem to enjoy it.
Right. So, you know, my entire life's work has been about my relationships with people. So, for me, the knocking on doors is about really respecting and honoring the importance of those relationships. And I'm asking people to show up in August and vote for me. And they have a right to have a conversation with me and understand why I'm running and what I'll do for them when I'm in service in the legislature.
Let's pretend you've got a whole lot of doors you've just knocked on this moment. So tell those people that are watching why you are running and what you would like to accomplish if you are successful.
Okay. I would like people to know that I'm a strong Democrat. I've been a lifelong Democrat. Prior to this election cycle, I was happy to serve in community. I was happy to show up and vote in every election, take my sons along with me to the ballots and teach them how to be engaged citizens as voters. And in recent history, what I've watched happen with our government is disheartening to me. And so what I want you to know is that I will serve with a passion and a zeal that I don't think you've seen, and not in a divisive way, in a way that I understand that we have to work together to really get things done. So I want you to know that I'm a strong Democrat, that I will fight for working families, that I will fight for quality public education, because I'm sending my boys into a public school every day, and I want to know that they're getting the education that they deserve. That I will fight for a thriving region where we use our resources responsibly and we create opportunities, not just for the people that have the most, but for people that want to do better.
When you think of the function of the state senate, it's unlike, for most people, it's like anything that they've ever been involved in. And understanding that majorities, minorities, and all of those things, whatever that makeup is, if it's, pretend it's just a level playing field for a moment, is there a particular issue that you would first like to tackle if you're successful?
I feel pretty strongly about public education. I would say that most of my career has been working to support the quality of public education, even though much of my work has been in public health. Because I think that when we think about public education, oftentimes we sort of think in these silos. But what I understand from my experience is that if families and young people are not healthy, they cannot succeed in school. And so the experience of improving public education doesn't just happen in school buildings. It happens in the broader community by creating healthier communities that empower people to show up and learn.
Also running for the Democratic nomination is former state representative Colleen Lamonte. I'm going to start with you where I have with some others, because in this primary mix of four, three of you have served in the state legislature. So you know what it's like. What possesses you to now want to go to the Senate chamber?
You know, I think it's a great opportunity to represent a larger area of constituents, people here in West Michigan, hardworking families, people that are just, trying to get by, and those are the people I will represent. So,
one of the differences now, perhaps when you first started this process, is that the economic climate here, as we said in Muskegon, is far better than it was
yes.
even a few years ago. But there's always more that can be done. What is it that you can do for this Tri-County area to try to expand on what looks like good progress here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we need to support our small businesses. A lot of the work that's been done that has, given us an economic boost has really been focused at the top. And I think we've got a lot of people, especially who are looking at entrepreneurships. They want to start their own business. We need to support that. We need to, give them the ability to find the capital they need to get a good business off the ground.
One of the things that I know you're passionate about is your former profession in education.
Yes.
And Governor Snyder, right here, just across the street, in fact, signed in the Marshall Plan for Talent, which really focuses on non-four-year degrees, certificate training and that kind of thing to get people trained, because one of the issues that you suffer from here, as we do around the state, we have jobs that are available and people who are available to go to work, but they don't have the skills to match up.
Yep.
Tell me how, in addition to that plan, we'll see how that plays out, how in addition to that does K through 12 education need to rethink how they prepare workers for tomorrow?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've seen 8 years of Betsy DeVos's plan to really dismantle our public education system, and I think there's a lot of work that we need to do to rebuild it. We were 34th in the nation when it came to NEEP scores. We have fallen to 49th, and that's atrocious. It's a travesty. We need to rebuild our K through 12 education. We need to have all avenues available for kids that are going off to college, kids that are looking to do, skill training. But it's going to take a lot of work, and I want to go there and be a part of that to rebuild and strengthen our K through 12 education system and make sure that all kids have that opportunity to have a good career for them.
What does it mean? What does it take? Because this argument is as old as I am, quite frankly, about how you deal with public education. And in the state of Michigan, the way we fund public education increasingly is becoming a topic of conversation.
Yes.
And there are some, I think on both sides of the aisle, that might want to take another look at how we do that, because the way we've done it for the past 20 plus years has presented some issues. Even the equalization that was promised has not necessarily.
No. And honestly, if you talk to legislators who were in office at the time when Prop A was passed, they knew that it was never going to provide the equity in education. There was always the idea that it was going to need to be, it needed to be tweaked, and it needed to be, reworked to make sure that we had better funding. Our funding system right now, it's upside down. We've got a lot of money that are going to affluent areas, kids who already have resources from at home, who don't need that extra money. And we've got areas where, kids that are coming to school with a lot of issues that they have to deal with outside of their education, and they are the ones that need the extra funding. They're the ones that need the after-school programs and smaller class sizes and things like that. I think we are going to have to look at how we fund education and really change what's going on.
When you think about this process of running for office in this environment, it's much different today than when you started for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
But two of the issues that are still topical, education
Yes.
and roads.
Roads. Yeah.
And I assume you hear a lot about both.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we had a group of our folks that were out knocking doors in Muskegon Heights recently, and those were the two topics that were coming up at the doors. Roads is an issue that we have got to solve. It's not something that we can continue to kick down the road. You know, the plan that was passed by the last legislature is kicking that plan down the road. It's making future legislatures, you know, figure out how they're going to, finish the funding for it. We need to make a sustainable plan of how we are going to fix our roads and bridges, have money that is going to maintain those roads and bridges, and also we have got to update our water and sewer systems. We need to figure out how we're going to pull lead pipes out of communities that have them and make sure that people have clean drinking water. This is not an issue that we can continue to say we're going to do it next year. We got to do it now.
Those are the Democrats who are running in the 34th Senate District. You'll meet the Republicans next. To the Point. Welcome back to the Point. We're taking a look at the race in the 34th Senate District, two primaries. You just met the Democratic candidates, now the Republicans. Here you'll meet two of the three folks who are running in the primary who have or are currently serving in the State House. We start with current State Representative Holly Hughes. Let's talk about this process because you're no stranger to the election cycle. This time a little broader district as you look at a Senate rather than a House seat. After your 6 years, spread out over 8 in the State House, what makes you want to go to the Senate?
Want to finish a lot of work that we need to get done yet. We've done a lot with jobs in the economy, but we've got a lot more to do. That's why I'm excited about the Marshall Plan. And our Veterans Job Fair, we just had our 7th one. Next year will be our 8th. I can't believe it's been that long. Thank you for encouraging me to continue with that. That's going really well. We had it at the Walker Arena and helping our veterans. In fact, we had 10 vets that were in danger of losing their homes or being homeless, and so we're working on that with Volunteers of America and the Veterans Center downtown Muskegon. So, but we got my fastest bill through with the Rebecca Bletch bill with the Willis murder. Introduced that in January, got it done and signed into law before the second murder trial. And our longest bill got done with the Pravaki safety bus light bill, which took 3 terms to do. But we're happy about actually $300 million plus $175 million, $475 million more for roads, because we had a great revenue conference. The state's doing a whole lot better. So we need to keep working on the roads, and we didn't have to raise taxes for that last part. So that was a blessing. We didn't know we had coming, but things are going so well. But there's a lot of jobs we need to fill. We have over 100,000, maybe even 120,000 jobs to fill in Michigan. That's why I'm excited about the Marshall Plan that the governor was in Muskegon 2 days ago to sign for training our workers and getting people back to Michigan and recruiting other people into Michigan so we can fill those jobs and working at a really good wage. So we're excited about that work.
When you talk about the roads, you know what your colleagues on the other side of the aisle say. They say, well, wait a minute, you've shifted money, there's not enough money, and the roads don't get fixed quickly enough. Fact of the matter is, Michigan roads were and remain, many of them, in pretty bad shape. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right. But we had 2 administrations who bonded roads that we're still paying for that we need to replace now. And you can't do it overnight. We're trying to do it as fast as we can, but if you put way too much money in it too fast, then you only get you maybe get the same amount of roads just about with a higher price tag. And we've put in safeguards to make sure that we have higher quality roads so we don't face like we did with that road from Holland and having to replace it way too soon.
When you think about some of those things that you want to get done, and I know the job training is really important to you, that too is going to be a long-term plan, and it's going to be one
Right.
That, as the governor pointed out, is, in his view, kind of a pilot, because in 2 years or in 4 years or at the end of the 5 years, when the $100 million will be used through that, at the end of 5 years, you'll have at least a better idea of how successful or not that it was. So is that the kind of thing that you would continue to pursue if you're successful?
Absolutely. There's a lot of work to do in the jobs area to make sure our kids have the skills that they need coming out of school. We have some folks in the tech center who can actually make more money than attorneys, and we need our kids to know what their options are and quality of life here in West Michigan. There's no better place to raise a family, and that's been my goal from the beginning. And we're at a point so much different than we were 8 years ago. We just wanted our kids to stay, and now we don't have deficit budgets. We finish them on time, and the economy's doing so well, but we want to make sure our families have the jobs that they need to support their families at a good wage. So
there are a couple of things that are important to everybody in the state, but I think of this district that you hope to represent two major issues. One is agriculture. There's a fair
Right.
amount of farming that goes on out here, and the lakeshore, fresh water, pure water, all of those things that are important.
Right.
Now, what role does the state play in protecting either of those, either the agriculture industry or obviously our tourism and fresh water?
It's our job to promote it. I'm chair of House Tourism and Outdoor Recreation, but our company is MasterTag, and over 4,000 farmers are our customers. So ag is primarily important to us, and it's a great economic engine. Our produce tastes better. You know, there's nothing like a Michigan blueberry, you know that, or a Michigan apple, and so it's an easy thing to promote. I think we can make a lot of ground on it, and that was our job. That's our job at our company, and I think that's our job as a state to help promote that ag industry, and so that we're strong. But also education with the Promise. We worked hard on that. I'm on that board. We raise money privately for that, and we got to make sure that our kids get the education that they need. And so that Promise covers Muskegon Community College and Baker College for Muskegon and Newaygo counties right now.
The other Republican running for the nomination is former Representative John Bumstead. Let's talk about this. You've been to Lansing. You know what it's like, and you're trying to sign up for another term. What made you decide to run for the Senate?
Well, right now I think the state's in a really good path, to good momentum. When we went in 2010, the state was a disaster, and I think we turned that around when Governor Snyder came in. I think it's time to keep that momentum going. And I think if we get the right people in office, such as I sat on appropriations, and a lot of it starts with appropriations, and vice chair my last 2 years. And I want to get back in the Senate and see if we can keep this state going and work hard for the residents of the 34th Senate.
When you look at this Senate district, there are some really big differences. For example, I talked to one of the other candidates about the transformation of Muskegon. I mean, if you were here even a few years ago, you might not recognize the place because there's a lot of positive development. But other areas of the district haven't seen as complete an economic recovery, and there's still employment issues, those kind of things. How do you try to take what appears to be positive momentum from Muskegon and spread that out?
You did mention it. It's trying right now. It's jobs and trying to fill those jobs. I mean, there's a lot of job openings, just not enough feet to walk into the door. And I think it's going to start at the K-12 level and try to get people through career tech, because that's where the jobs are. If you manufacturing, whatnot, food processing, all the growers and processors are all looking for well-qualified folks to walk through their doors. We got to make sure they get that training. I think that's going to be a big plus for the state. We've got to get people educated and trained for the jobs that are available. Not necessarily everybody needs to go get a 4 or 6 year college degree. We still need those folks, but the career tech fields is where it's at. As you know, that's where I came from, in the building trades.
Well, and the building trades would be one of those areas right now we were talking before. I mean, couldn't find people, to build now because everybody wants to build. One of the things the governor has done, you mentioned Governor Snyder earlier, actually here in Muskegon, signed a bill into law that puts $100 million into the skilled trade. He calls it the Marshall Plan for Talent. But that's one of those kind of things that just starts because these jobs are open now. And part of the problem is, for example, in a district like yours, there may be jobs here, but not the skilled people for them, or you may have people in your area, but the jobs are somewhere else. So somehow getting that all pulled together has to be part of the plan.
It's got to be a little bit of everything, because remember when in 2010 it was just nothing but cars leaving the state. I think now we can attract a lot of those folks, which are kids and grandkids, back to the state, and they need to realize there's jobs here now, long-term jobs. And those are, we need to bring people back, new workforce, but having experienced folks coming back and getting them employed is very important. We can't do it all at one level. It's going to take a little bit of mix of everything.
One of the things you talked about was being on the Appropriations Committee, and it dawns on me that I have seen this cycle before, where the state is going along and all of a sudden you start to see all of these job openings and people paying well above minimum wage, and what that translates to in addition to employment is tax revenue. And I watched the legislature and the governor spend money, and they continued to appropriate it. And then at the end of the 1990s, they did something I'd never seen. They did a negative supplemental. They had to cut back in some of the promised spending because the revenues fell off because it started to slow down. We didn't know it was going to slow down for the next 10 years, but it did. Yeah. If you go back to the Senate, how do you, if you do, kind of rein in the enthusiasm about spending at a time when revenues are good, knowing that in the future they may not be?
That's why it's important. In 2010, the state was hundreds of millions of billions of dollars, or $75 billion plus dollars in debt, and we've paid that down quite a bit. And it's important, and we put that a lot of money away in a rainy day fund. So I think it's important to keep paying down that debt, put more money away in a rainy day fund for the times when the economy does tank or dip a little bit. But really, in Michigan, our economy after 9/11, I was a building contractor. You could see it shortly after 9/11. Our economy slowly tanking. It took 12, 13 years for Michigan to come out. And a lot of it had to do with the tax structure, that we had that horrific business tax that sent businesses out of state. And we eliminated that, so businesses started coming back. Government doesn't have to create jobs, it's just to help people create jobs. And I think a lot of that has to do with keeping the taxes low and balancing budgets, because if we get a good credit rating by balancing the budget, it helps everybody in the state of Michigan.
Let me ask you a question that you've been asked 100 times at people's doors, and that is roads in Michigan. How do you fix them? When do you fix them? Legislature came up with one answer, but a lot of folks said not enough.
Well, the problem we have in Michigan, we've got like 5 months to fix the roads. We got so far behind the last 15, 20 years with infrastructure. It's going to take us a while to catch up. I believe the money's there now. This is the first year I think the full funding is in effect. That money will be there. The counties are getting more money now, so the locals are getting more money, so they can start repairing the local roads, city roads, state roads. It's just going to take us time, but people need to sit back and think, Michigan, we get rain, we get snow, we have 6 and 7 months of bad weather, so it's hard for the contractors. They can't work 8 and 9 months. It's hard, you just don't have enough time, you don't have enough companies out there to do that road work. It's just going to take us time. It's going to take several years to catch up. And it's important we do catch up, because good roads helps all of us in Michigan.
We'll be back with more To the Point. So now you have met the candidates running in the primary for the 34th Senate District. Of course, there will be other candidates on the ballot in November, and when that time rolls around, we'll talk about that too. Coming up, we'll take a look at other races that are important to you every Sunday morning right here, To the Point.